All right, so for this lesson, we're going to be talking about linear functions, but more importantly, we're going to be talking about the key features. So we're going to be talking about slope and the y-intercept in the real world. Now, we've talked about slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So you should recognize that slope is the m value and b is the y-intercept. Now, what you need to know when you're talking about the real world is that the slope is the repeating value. The y-intercept is the initial value. So when I say the initial value, I mean the first one-time number. When I say the repeating value, I mean the number that happens over and over again. So an example of this would be if you go and you get a taxi. So if you go get a taxi, you're going to pay a one-time fee to get into that taxi. So let's say the fee is $5. But you're also going to pay how much you go per mile. So let's say that they charge you $2 per mile. So your linear function, if I have a fee of $5 and they also charge me $2 per mile, that linear function is going to have two pieces. It's going to have the y-intercept and the slope. Well, the fee is something you're going to pay one time. So my initial value is my y-intercept. That is my fee. My slope is my repeating value. We're going to pay $2 every mile, so per mile. So every mile I go, I'm going to pay $2. Every mile again, $2 more. Another mile, $2. That's my repeating value. So my slope is 2. So if I were to write this equation, I would say y equals 2x plus 5. I paid $5 up front, and I'm paying $2 per mile, where x would represent the miles and the y is going to represent my total cost. So again, just to make sure we understand, x is going to represent the number of miles, and my y is going to represent my total cost that I will pay in the end. Now, please do not get these two things confused. Your y-intercept is very different from your y variable. Your y variable is your total amount at the end. So if we're talking about the cost of a taxi cab, that's your total cost. The y value is your final value after everything has been applied. The y-intercept is the initial value. So they're kind of opposites of each other. The 5 is how much you're going to pay initially. The y is how much you're going to pay at the very end, depending on how many miles you went. So do not get those two things confused. All right, so let's look at some examples, and we're going to identify the slope, the y-intercept, and we're going to write the equation. So the basic shipping charge is $10 for the first item via USPS and $7 more for each additional item. If an equation is made to calculate the shipping charge, what is the value of the slope? So remember, slope is your repeating value. So this is the repeating value. So if I'm looking for the repeating value, I'm looking for the value that's going to keep happening. So we have two options here. We have a first-time charge of $10 and $7 more for each additional item. So the first-time charge, that's a one-time charge. That's not a repeating amount. The repeating amount is $7 more for each additional item. For every item I ship, I'm going to pay $7 more. So my slope in this particular problem is 7. Then it says what would be the y-intercept. Well, the y-intercept is the initial amount, that first time amount. So that's going to be 10. So my equation is y equals 7x plus 10. All right, number 2, I talked about an example just a second ago with this. A taxi service charges a $10 flat fee plus $3 per mile. If an equation is made to calculate the cost of a taxi ride, then what do we have? So we have a $10 flat fee and $3 per mile. So the slope is my repeating value. My repeating value is the $3 per mile. So a good indicator for what is your repeating value are words like per or every or dish for each additional. So those kind of phrases are going to tell me that I'm going to keep paying those over and over. So then my y-intercept is where I'm going to have that one-time initial amount, and that's the flat fee. That flat fee was $10. So my equation for this one is y equals 3x plus 10. All right, for number 3, you're learning yoga in a fitness center, which charges a $200 registration fee plus $12 per lesson. If an equation is made to calculate the total charge you need to pay, what would be the value of the slope? What would be the value of the y-intercept? So we're talking about a $200 registration fee plus $12 per lesson. Well, you're not going to pay a registration fee over and over again. So your registration fee is going to be your y-intercept. That's your one-time upfront fee. That's your initial amount. And then the $12 per session is going to be your slope. That's the repeating amount. Every session, you're going to pay $12 more. That's your slope. So my equation here is y equals 12x plus 200. All right, now that we kind of have where my pieces go and what they mean, let's apply them.